And our next presentation is a flow right through that. Very, very brave following that. So way to go. Yeah, right. We love pigs. And really happy to have Jim Gigliarno, GIO for Wisconsin, our host state. And the abstract, when it came in, was really about facilitating a discussion around climate change. And this really sets the stage. So Rob is going to stay with us. We're going to go through this and we're going to all get involved in that wonderful discussion. So
okay, how do I advance here? Is it this?
Oh, here, hold on. Here comes Amy.
Oh,
yes.
excellent.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, while you're doing that, I used to live in Iowa and we had 6 million pigs. And boy, they smelled bad. Am I there? Okay. Well, thank you very much for accepting my abstract. I was sort of surprised that it happened. There was this really nice state caucus on January 6th, and Rob was there, and that really sort of inspired me to throw something together. And I was kind of aiming for the innovation section, but I ended up here. So it is what it is. And you know, it's, you know, what do they say about in entertainment? Don't follow children and animals. And so again, this is really quite an honor to be doing this. Welcome to Milwaukee. It's the biggest city in our state. And this is a satellite photo from, I think it's probably GOES. And back in January when things were happening, and it looked so lovely that I had to include it. But what you can't see on here is, you know, showing the Great Lakes. The lakes are hotter by 2 degrees. The ice doesn't stay on the lakes as long as it used to. And so there's more things like lake effect snow in Michigan. And we're in a drought right now, a nice year-long drought. And so, you know, the pretty picture is in sharp contrast to where we actually are. So I just had to start with that. Okay, it's not going anywhere. Oh, this green button? Oh, there we go. There's 2 green buttons on the thing. So it started out that I need a drink. It started out that I was going to try to talk about some experiences with what I've been calling the GIS comfort zone. And I think, you know, you can almost guess what I'm referring to here. We like to do things. We like technology. We have a lot of fun with it, and we do great stuff. And sometimes we don't necessarily get into things like climate change and other difficult topics. Okay. Okay. Now how about if I just point and say next slide? Because I don't seem to be doing it. Okay, we're on the outline. Great. Okay, so here's what I'm going to talk about. And since I can't see what I'm looking at, I'm going to turn the page and break it up into a couple sections here. Try to get sort of a GIS framework for talking about climate type things, and use our friend here from New York as an example, because that's kind of what motivated things, and really give a sort of a really far out example of what we could do as a GIS community, and then also as NSGIC. Okay, some ideas for planning and you know, kind of picking up where Rob left off there and moving into the future, because we're going to be in this for a long time, so we might as well get used to it. Okay. Next one. Okay, so here's the thing. This is probably the most important slide. This is kind of what Rob was talking about, but in a graphical sense. Okay, so this is an IPCC document. It's showing various 5 different scenarios, which are called various things. These are the socioeconomic pathways. Sometimes they're called projections. And the important one is, well, the current one is that yellow one in the middle. Okay, so we're in the middle and things are going up, and as you can see, you know, where we are now and where the temperature is going in a graphical sense, it's not good. Okay, and then for the where we want to be is somewhere on those blue or purple curves, right? That's that realm of 1.5 degrees, and to get there, we really have to do a really bang up job on the mitigation side, getting companies to reduce their footprint, getting as much CO2 out of the atmosphere. But behind that, there's an incredible amount of adaptation work that we're going to have to be doing at the same time. So here's a little more explanation of what those different things are, and Rob very nicely talked about those. My story for today is that this mitigation part is the key. Okay, it's the key for us. And if the big wigs decide that mitigation's too hard, okay, well, we're gonna be doing a lot of GIS stuff in the adaptation realm, right? If they decide that more mitigation is something that we can do, then there's going to be lots of opportunities for us, and I'm gonna show one of those opportunities in a little bit here. Next slide, please. Okay, so very quickly, framing adaptation in terms of GIS stuff. Okay, so risk assessment, you know, very normal sort of GIS type analysis. Everybody's doing it. There's all kinds of things for different management practices, for wildfires, for flooding, you know, redesigning your infrastructure, and of course all the things that local governments like to do, planning for hazard mitigation, soil and water conservation. All those things are very mapping intensive. Okay, next slide. Okay, then on the other side, there's this mitigation word, and again, mapping carbon. Where is it now? Where is it going? Planting trees, sequestering carbon in soils, and then there's all those things with renewable fuels and putting up power lines and good stuff like that. And yeah, so that's those are two big things to frame our GIS discussion. Next slide, please. I'm going to throw in here that this topic is you know, been around for a very long time, but in the last couple of years, particularly in the last year, it's gotten quite a bit more activity. That's the whole environmental justice, like if you're familiar with the EPA's EJ screen, and several of you states have these state-specific tools for mapping equity and the disproportionate impact on various communities for things. And my example here is Milwaukee. demographic indicators there, the red zone, that's primarily the neighborhoods of color in Milwaukee. And as you can see, the particular particulate matter pretty much mimics that. And if you throw on all the other things, you know, where the interstate is, where the lead pipes are, you know, they all kind of look the same. So I'm putting this map up as it's a topic. It does sort of fit under both the adaptation side and maybe a little bit on the mitigation side, but it's very important that it stands on its own and that we address it as GIS folks. Okay, next slide, please. This one I'm on a little shakier ground, but it was really good to have Rob talk about the pigs because that's all part of it. Having a discussion about where people are going to end up. This is a study that the Rhodium Group did. If you search on ProPublica and Rhodium climate migration, this will come up, and it's basically a story map. And I just grabbed two of the ugliest slides. The purple and green on the lower left there is changes in crop yield. Of course, purple is bad, green is good. And then on the right, that's economic damage. And the thing about this is using an RCP, a projection 4.5. That's the current one. That's the one we're on now. Okay, so these folks are saying these are things that are, you know, that are likely to happen under this particular scenario. And the little diagram up there, which was a globe on their story map, was showing a zone of the US where things were going to sort of be okay, you know, kind of with the idea that you know, if you're going to pick up stakes, you're going to move north, right? And so this band in the Midwest, you know, kind of becomes the optimal zone, right? If you go to one of the worst, the hotter scenarios, that moves even more north, and you know, Wisconsin becomes this really nice place to live, right? Because you're out of danger. Not really. Next slide, please. No, I can't turn my page. There we go. Okay, so getting back to January 6th, I stole these slides from Rob. I snapped them while he was talking, and he actually listed these, you know, in his talk. These are a bunch of the GIS activities that he and his folks there in New York are doing. And what I'm going to do, next slide, please. I rearranged them into my little GIS framework. So I put the adaptation things in one column, put the mitigation things in another column. He had a whole bunch of infrastructure, SDI type stuff. So those kind of fit in their own category. And then there's the environmental justice and the migration, and they've got a few projects like that. So what I'm showing here is here's a state that's doing a lot of cool stuff, right? And it sort of gives us a target of what we could be doing, right? I live in a purple state. So we're kind of on the blue side of that purple, and we're able to talk about these things and actually work on some of them right now. And I'm sure, you know, someday it'll go back the other way, and these things will go underground, and we'll have to come up with other ways of doing it. But again, it takes this enormous amount of stuff that Rob was talking about and puts them into sort of nice, simple categories that I can understand. And I'm not that bright, so I have to do things like that. Next slide, please. So our lovely folks in NSGIC a couple of years ago did these really nice resilience task force products. Really, really some fine material here to start with. And what we need to do is, figure out how to relaunch this and get it going again. And very clearly, these are on the adaptation side of the spectrum. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so what's this comfort zone garbage about? We like to eat and drink and go to conferences and have a good time, right? And where we learn a lot and figure out what we're going to be doing. We like to discuss the application of technology, problem solving, fun stuff. And pretty much we kind of follow the guardrails of our agencies and what we can and can't do within those things. So that's the comfort zone. The discomfort zone is kind of everything else. We particularly in the circles I run in, we don't like to talk about climate change and environmental justice on a daily sort of way. Okay, next slide, please. And sort of what's the some of the fallout from this, particularly in our state. We have difficulty engaging across agencies, jurisdictions, professions on complex issues. We can kind of do little small things one at a time, but something on this scale and complexity, it's very difficult. Okay. A lot of times people just assume that the GIS data is there when it's not. And then they're mad at you that they can't use it right away. So anyway, next slide. And basically, we love what we do a good job. This attitude of this can-do attitude, kind of a two-edged sword. People get used to you being able to produce something. The boss wants a map by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so you make him a map, and then he thinks you can do anything, right? And how many people have actually had that experience? Yeah, okay. Anyway, particularly in Wisconsin, we don't have a seat at the big table. And we really need to fix that. So considerations for NSGIC. This is really getting in, thank you. Read my mind. This is a really big topic. We need to break it into these nice small chunks that are easy to understand. We need to really confront this comfort zone idea. There was a lot of talk yesterday in the, what do you call it? The state caucus about, we can't say the climate word. We gotta, couch it in some other things. That's fine. I totally get that. But we also have to find ways around that. And as a group, support each other, so everybody, is able to make progress, because that migration map is pretty scary. Okay, so some areas of the country are going to be really walloped really hard, and other places have good things to offer that hopefully can mitigate some of the damage. And then we have lots of good states that we can learn from. Okay, next slide, please. More considerations for NSGIC. This is a multi-decade issue. It's not going to go away, and so it's going to keep knocking. And work on. We probably should work on a strategic plan, as well as sort of smaller targets. And I just wanted to say, do you guys remember Mary Ann Stewart, who used to give the trainings for FGDC on planning? She died in November or last December, and I didn't know that. You know, her birthday came up on Facebook, and I checked before I said happy birthday, Mary Ann. So she lived a very interesting and good life, and she helped a lot of our states do business plans and strategic plans. Okay, bottom line, we can use things like the geospatial maturity assessment. We can maybe sort of take that model and use it for climate readiness. We can look at the Geospatial Data Act and maybe help break down some data silos. And I'll talk about that in a second. Of course, look for funding and the whole nice talk yesterday about governance structures. We need some ideas for that. Okay, all right, here's the fun stuff. This is to get you all involved and wondering why we haven't done this sooner. Three actions. Thank you for changing. Breaking down the silos. Okay, I work with the lovely folks on the 3DEP program. We finished our state this year. Yay! It took us, what, 6-7 years to get there? And, you know, now what? Okay, we're gonna do hydro, okay? How long is that gonna take? And okay, all our LiDAR data is out of date now because it keeps raining. And so we get into this thing, this sort of serial pattern. Part of that is because, you know, the various state agencies have their own little turf, and those don't serve us very well, right? You know, and so we're gonna try something in Wisconsin. We're trying to put together an integrated mapping pilot project, and we're gonna try to do the hydro, the wetlands, the land cover, all at the same time. And so they line up vertically, and they're analysis ready. I heard someone mention that the last time, and that's a good thing to go with. We're going for that. Okay, here's the example. Green Bay, lovely town. Not really. Three Huck 10s, I think these are, that flow into the bay. And, you know, here's all the data silos on the federal side. I won't even get into the data silos on the state and the local side, but that's, you know, this is where we start. And of course, you know, elevation leads to hydro, leads to hydrologic unit boundaries and so forth ad nauseum. Okay, this one, I don't know what I was drinking when I did this one, but and this will just, you know, really show that I'm not an IT guy. But here's my thesis here. Data portals are nice, but it's, you know, it's 20-year-old technology, basically. You know, we had an FTP site in 1993, okay, after the big flood. And, you know, it really hasn't changed all that much, right? We've made the interface fancier, but it's still pooping out data, and people use it, and they store the same stuff on their systems. Okay, so what we sort of need is evolving this, all these multiple sites into some kind of a model. I don't know what you call this. I've been calling it the digital twin of the Earth, okay? And if you go to the next slide, here is my stinky little cartoon of what this looks like. And, you know, we need to put all the LiDAR data in one place. We need to put all the imagery in one place. We need to put the hydro data in one place, so that instead of downloading the darn stuff, you're actually interacting with it in real time and able to, you know, do fun stuff with it. Next slide. And evolving that further, instead of this having this sort of one serial sort of life, we need to have a space built into this so that the updates are happening at a much more rapid pace, okay? And for us, that means really involving the local folks, because they know where the culvert is that makes your HEDEM go in the wrong direction, okay? And Rob was talking about systems thinking. So getting beyond the idea of you know, sort of static data layers, things that are in motion, okay? You know, connecting to the national water model, for example, or connecting to you know, watersheds or NexRad data. Next slide, please. Okay, enough of that jazz. Here, this is what I consider, if I had 30 more years to work on stuff, I have 2, and and if I did, this would be something great to work on. Okay, visualizing the carbon storage in the Earth's ecosystems. I don't know if you can see that, but you know, wetlands is really huge. Okay, look at our national wetlands inventory. That's really underfunded. It's not what it could be, and according to this diagram, it's really critically important, and so as a carbon storage sort of thing. Next slide, please. Here again, here's my little example. This is a Huck 12 in Iowa. It's a very agricultural watershed. And the folks at the USDA Ag Research Service built something called the Agricultural Conservation Planning Framework, ACPF. And they've taken all these authoritative data sets and actually made them useful. Very key concept here. They put them into, put all the data together into Huck 12s, all the crop data layers, turned them into land use layers. So things like continuous corn, soybeans versus, you know, a rotation with pasture in it. And I don't know if you can't really see it, but my little chart down there, I took the USDA Comet tool, which is a carbon estimating tool, and I plugged in there, you know, we plugged in the equivalent of turning all those row crops into a cover crop rotation, a reduced tillage, and a row crop to wood lot. And as you can see, the numbers, the tons of carbon for that land use incrementally go up. And if you were to apply different rates for carbon storage, I use $15, $50, and $100 per ton. You can start to see what the options are. Okay, so right now in central Iowa, carbon farming is not a glorious option because the return on it isn't real great. But that's at $15 per acre. And if you go back to our chart with the mitigation stuff, and we're you know, going toward that 1.5 degrees, that price of that carbon is going to go through the roof. Okay, and it's, you know, they're going to go, gee, what was I doing, you know, trying to get $6 a bushel of corn when I can just sit there and watch the trees grow or something. So lots of potential there. Okay, next slide. We're almost done. So here I think is the opportunity, and this really goes to kind of the thing that Cy was talking about. I think we need a pilot for this type of activity. Right now, there's this disconnect between the national CO2 reduction efforts, and then we've got all these companies trying to buy carbon credits, either through forestry or ag things. And so down at the bottom are all these projects. Give me a click, please. And you know, one of the troubles with this is there's very likely some double accounting going on because there's no oversight. So click again. And at some point, there's going to be an oversight body. There has to be because you know, some of the things Rob was talking about, the AR6 are setting up that framework through the UN. So what could we be doing? We could be setting up the infrastructure that would help that entity, whatever it is, to keep track of land use through, you know, through our new infrastructure here. And I think, again, if I had 30 years, this would be it. I think there's probably opportunities for turning information into carbon credits, which may be the way that we pay for something like this. That's, you know, that's really a crazy idea at this point. But I think if you start to figure in some of the benefits, the co-benefits of, you know, reducing flooding and reducing chemicals that are used and all that jazz. Okay, next slide. Sorry to take so long. Specific ideas for NSGIC. I think we could evolve the GMA into a climate GNA. Pretty simple. Maybe do it once in 5 years, something like that. Next slide. Is that a ding ding for me? Oh, okay. How am I doing on time? 13 left. Okay, real fast. Proposal to move NSGIC towards some action. We need a shorter term action plan. I think, you know, sort of developing our ideas about the framework, developing a message, finding some new partners. I think people like the TNC and Ducks Unlimited are probably, you know, would be interested in a lot of this stuff. And then, of course, you know, finding dollars. And then the example here would be monitoring carbon offsets. Okay, next slide. Strategic plan. Again, just kind of furthering those ideas into a longer term plan. And next slide. So here we are. We're at the culmination. We're trying to figure out what NSGIC, how NSGIC fits into this. And I think it's again, you know, figuring out sort of that comfort zone thing and how we can address the concerns that we heard yesterday about that, but also figuring out how we can do some of these innovative pilot programs to really set the course for the next 30 years. And with that, oh, okay. That's perfect. I just forgot to update the last slide, which was to ask, you know, the questions that you had. So ta-da, pigs. The pigs swim. Has anybody witnessed that? The pigs swim. Okay. Okay, then they're probably okay.
Great, thank you. Emily, if you would mind stopping the sharing so we can see the video. Oh, actually, we need these questions up. It's fantastic. So thank you, and Rob was gracious enough to stay on with us. Jim, please stay at the podium, and I'll break the ice with showing a little bit of ignorance on my own part. Carbon storage, carbon sequestering, in a minute or two, how do I explain that? That's a good way for me to say that I don't know. I'm just asking for help explaining it. But how do I explain what we're really accomplishing? What is carbon sequestering as it relates to the land use?
Okay, I'll give you a real good concrete answer.
Great.
In northern Wisconsin, our county, Bayfield County forester has 174 acres of prime forest land. And he is working with a carbon broker in California called Blue Source. And they have a very good management plan of an inventory of what trees they're harvesting and how much biomass is going in and out. And they're using that estimation of that carbon flux to basically sell to another company and for their carbon offsets. And it's netting the county something like $1.5 million a year for however long this thing goes. So it's, they're altering their management plan, so they're storing a little bit more carbon in their forest. And that by verifying that and monitoring that, they can sell that to a third party, and the third party can claim that their emissions are being offset by that amount.
Okay. So what you're really saying is the type of biomass and the amount of carbon that's in it will bring carbon into the biomass and less into the atmosphere.
And you're getting paid to do it.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's go to our virtual friends. And Jamie, would you fire off anything that you see in the chat or invite friends online to come on and unmute?
Yes, I don't see anything in the chat at this point, Frank. But certainly everyone virtually, feel free to use the raise the hand function, type your questions, comments in the chat, or, oh, looks like Leland put his hand up. Leland, feel free to come off mute and on video.
Yeah, I'll help get the discussion started. For both of you, Robert and Jim, great talks, thank you. So I deal with wildlife, and I've been dealing with climate change forever. And you can have a situation where climate may be causing some rat or bug or whatever to be moving into another area where it's never been before, and it's a federally listed animal, and the doggone thing is now moving into an area that would be of great economic interest. So you're having to deal with this, and now the Fish and Wildlife Service and state and all of us, we've got to deal with that issue right now while taking into account climate change. But the real issue is we got to get the temperature down, right? And we're talking about the carbon sequestration and all that. How do you communicate all the different complexities of climate change to where we're all producing the data that we can all use? Because it just strikes me there's so many different angles to this, and there's so many private interests on one particular issue. How do you communicate up and down all across all these scales to where we're all working together?
Rob, would you like to take a crack at that one?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that one. Yeah, so there's a whole field called climate communications, which has been trying to answer that question. You have an amazing question. And when I was doing my presentation, I was talking about the complexities. This is so astronomically complex. We are going to need people who have the ability to model in that level of complexity and organize those ideas and then communicate them in much more simple terms for people to get. But we have to have people willing to go into that level of complexity. And that means we have to get people highly trained to do what our brain is not really good at doing. And I do think that having the types of tools that we're talking about today helps us to arrange those. For example, we've got multiple layers and data sets that allow us to look at those, but then we have to have people who can play in the level of complexity and look at those complex interactions. I know that that's one of my little pet projects that I'm working on, is how do we actually do this systems approach and systems thinking of having all these things coming together. You've got temperature changes, you've got humidity changes, and then you have these episodic events like a heat wave that might last for 5 or 6 days. And then you've got these insects migrating in, and they only feed on certain kinds of crops. And so you put all of that has to come together with some type of analysis. And that's what we don't yet do well. We know we need to do this. We don't yet do well in actually dealing with these level of complex problems. The communication of that might be a little bit easier in that we know how human brains work, and we know that most people are not overeducated like I am, and don't get their brains warped to waddle in this. So the communications challenge is really being able to work with those people who play in the very complex data arena, and then coming up with the essential stories and communicating those effectively to people. And I think that those are kind of two different things, being able to do the complex system analysis and then working with the communicators as the bridge people who'll be able to take that complexity, simplify it into messages and pictures and stories that people can get to make the decisions that they need to make. You know, if we were, just imagine if we were able to take 10 relevant data sets and we looked at the interactions there, and we could generate one map that says, here's a recommendation to do A, B, and C. And we take that one map of A, B, and C, and we turn it over to people who have to make decisions and say, here's the trade-offs if you do A, and here's if you do B and do C. They don't need to know how the sausage was made, although they can certainly play in there, and that would be open data. But the communication of that is going to be, I think, the real key to get people to understand. I know it's really complex, but I've got these three simple choices that I can make, and I'm going to choose B, and then deal with the repercussions that were identified, or the trade-offs that were identified. That process, nowhere have I seen that process actually being being fully addressed, but we know what the problem is and the need. So you were great in asking the question. It was a great question that identifies yet again that challenge of going from complexity to simplicity that people will need in order to make decisions.
I hope some folks are taking notes, because he just gave us a whole bunch of marching orders on what we can work on. I think great opportunity for NSGIC to work on this stuff. Hey, thank you very much.
This is a follow-up question to that. My name is Susan Miller, and I'm the GIO in Georgia, but I'm actually asking this question from my past life working for the Nature Conservancy. And there's several former TNC staff, pardon? Oh, former TNC staff in the NSGIC community. And so one thing that we found useful, and I'm wondering if it might be useful here too, in communicating these complex stories, is in meeting people where they are in terms of what they care about. And in particular, I was thinking about ecosystem services and trying to convey to people that climate change is tied to their health and well-being. It's tied to clean water and clean air and their ability to eat food, and really kind of help them understand how their daily life is impacted by climate change. And, we have a lot of not in my backyard isms, everywhere, right? And when you explain to people that this will dramatically impact them exactly where they are, we found that to be a very compelling argument. And then, trying to evaluate ecosystem services is obviously a very complex field as well, but it was a good communication tool.
Rob and Jim, we have a few more thoughts here from our virtual friends. I'd love to invite Kim Cloud from Delaware to come off mute and off video. Thanks, Kim.
Hi, everybody. Thank you guys for the great presentations. I know my brain's going a mile a minute. I live in Delaware in a very low-lying coastal area, and I have a real quick story to tie into the comment that I have. There's a road on the way to our house. I actually have to check the tide gauge sometimes, especially during coastal storms, to see which way I need to go to get home. So we're actually, our Department of Transportation has a new climate resiliency group. They've started to have these town hall sessions. I went to the one for our road. There were hundreds of people there who want to know why these roads aren't being addressed or aren't being raised. They don't understand why these data sets aren't there for us to do the analysis that we need to do to make sure things are taken care of. Our Department of Transportation now has a challenge of trying to do the analysis with data sets that are 5 or 8 years old. And when you listen to all these presentations and the stuff we talked about yesterday, the feds are collecting the data. We've been fighting to get funding. We cannot get sustainable regular funding in Delaware. It's very difficult. We actually just got ARPA funding to pay for a one-time refresh of everything. So we've been successful in that regard. But why can we use NSGIC, or I would see NSGIC could come into play in figuring out what are those common data sets that we need to do this analysis that everybody needs. It's going to vary state to state. I know for Delaware, we've got a lot of flooding issues, but other states, 50, 60 years from now, people are going to be moving out of these areas that the pigs are going to move. So the other states that may not have the flooding issues need to figure out, do you have the resources to support the people that are going to be moving there? So it just seems like there's this universal need for this data. I would think NSGIC as a whole collective, it would be helpful to identify those data sets and help coordinate the funding for, these are essential things that need to be funded. The taxpayers are paying at the county, state, and federal level. So, I would think it would be great to figure out a way to make the best use of taxpayer dollars and pay for it one time. So that would be a huge help from NSGIC, I know, for us. So that's it.
It's a great challenge, Kim, and we are right on schedule to start our break here. And I knew this was going to happen, and by design, we're going to cut this short and leave us all hungry to contribute. And we will continue the conversation, and it's going to permeate a lot of the conversations that we have in NSGIC. So apologize if you didn't get a chance to say your piece. Stay with us, and you absolutely will.